everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on Buddy Daddies episode 5. We're not even halfway through the season. I'm so excited. We have 13 episodes. We're not even halfway, and I'm loving this series. It's so cute. And like we talked in the last reaction, I feel like the very first 4 episodes were all setting up our characters, setting up Ray, setting up Kazuki, setting up Miri, setting up the situation of getting Miri into a daycare, and then setting up the idea that these are hitmen. They need a job to pay for their kid. And so Q, who is our guy that basically gets them the jobs, it seems a little bit apprehensive because I think he knows they've got a kid with them, and he's like, this seems like it's going to be a problem. I think he realizes why the one mission was botched, and the Rio guy has been coming in and taking all of their work, and he's reliable. So there's going to be this give and take of, okay, do I give it to the reliable guy to do, or do I give it to you goons, who seem like you have your hands full already? So there's a big question there of what to do, but we've set everything up. So the question is this going to be, because in a 3-act structure, usually this would be the point where the conflict starts to take place. It's either going to be this episode or the next episode, since we have 13 episodes. But I'm really loving this series. I found out that PA Works does other series as well, but they were all series I haven't really seen before. But apparently they do quality work, and the animation has been really good. I love the soundtrack. And then, of course, I love our characters, Ray and Kazuki and Miri. I surprisingly have liked Ray a lot more than I thought I would. I think it's because of his dad and then his connection to Miri. I thought starting out this series that I would empathize and like Kazuki the most. And I do like Kazuki a lot. But the last few episodes, I've really kind of attached onto Ray. And I'm like, I didn't anticipate myself doing that, which is kind of fun. So, yeah. I've heard a lot of criticism that people are like, oh, Miri's annoying. And I'm like, she's a 4-year-old and she's very accurately represented. So, yes, that is the one thing. I mean, Anya, a lot of people, again, compare this to Spy Family. Anya in Spy Family is 5 or 6. It's questionable. And she is, for the most part, accurate. But then there are some times that I'm like, we use some anime logic with her to make things work. And with Miri, no, that's how a 4-year-old works, especially one who's been raised in a household where her mom didn't care and probably didn't teach her manners or whatever. She was just going through the motions. So I feel like it's a very accurate representation. If you don't like Miri, then you've, one, either been around kids and hated them, or you've not been around kids, and 2, just don't watch the show. So I'm like, I see a lot of like flack on Twitter. I'm like, just don't watch it. I never understand the troll thing where people like hate watch and then they complain about it. I'm like, you don't have to watch it if you don't like it. So whatever. But I'm really enjoying the series, and I love Kazuki and Ray, and Miri's adorable. So especially we got Anna introduced last episode. I love Anna a lot. She's great. I'm excited to see her as a character, and she seems like she's an advocate for Ray and Kazuki, so we'll see. But I woke up this morning, got myself a cup of coffee, and thought, I am ready to watch the new episode of Buddy Daddies. So here we are. Cheers. But we're going to start this episode and see what happens. The cool thing is it's anime only, so we're all in the same boat. We have no clue what's coming until we watch this. I kind of like that, right? Like, not that I'm against manga adaptations or anything like that, because that's 90% of what I watch. But it is fun to watch something where everyone in the audience, we are all on the same spectrum of, we don't know what's going to happen. It helps with spoilers because I can't really be spoiled. There's nothing to base this off of. So there's no telling what's going to happen. I'm all about that. So we're going to start Buddy Daddies episode 5. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh man, whew. That was a really good episode, but that was so tense. I was like, oh my God. There's little subtle things happening in this episode, like just little tiny micro expressions, micro gestures, little things that especially between Ray doing little things. I've noticed like Kazuki wears his heart on his sleeve, and Kazuki is just like all over the place, like emoting everything, and Ray's so quiet and introverted. But there's little things that Ray does in this episode that I'm like, okay, that's so telling, right? Because Kazuki emotes, and so you can instantly tell what he's thinking about things. With Ray, there's little things that he does. It's like, okay, this is going to be something that's going to come up later. We need to make note of that. And then Kyu-chan, Q-taro. Whoo, he is a fascinating character, and there's a lot more to him than it seems. And the fact that he knows everything, yeah, he's figured it all out. But he's like, okay, I can see why you're doing this, but you do realize the line of work we're in. People die. We are exchanging, I like that line, we are exchanging human lives for money. That will often lead to those people trying to seek revenge on us or trying to get back at you. Miri is caught up in the middle of this. Are you okay with that? And if so, just don't regret that decision. And the idea that Q's like, I'm willing to help y'all, but just get your job done. Like that's Q's thing at the end of the day. So they work for an organization. They're working for an organization. I'm going to imagine it's Ray's dad. I'm imagining Ray's dad is in charge of the organization because he's like, Ray, you know what happens if we don't get the jobs done. I feel like Q's talking to Ray in that moment being like, you and I both know how your father works. He's going to try, there's going to be consequences if we don't get these jobs done. And so I feel like Ray's dad's in charge of that, okay? So Q's like, you know just as well as I do what's going to happen. And there's some moments where Ray, like his expression changed a little bit, like he realizes it, but he's on board the Miri train too. So I like that Q's like, I'm willing to help you, just make sure you get the job done. So Q's first and primary focus is the organization and the part that he plays. He is the guy that gets out the jobs. He gathers the intel up for the organization and then pays out the people that got it for him. So he's like, I've got a job to do. I'm going to keep doing it. You all do your part. Let's make this machine run smoothly or we got a problem. So Q-chan's interesting. And the fact that he doesn't hold any ill will towards Ray and Kazuki. He's just like, you guys got to know this is what we're doing. And I like that Q's like, we kind of are in a weird situation because we killed her dad. So this is kind of our fault that we're in this situation. But he's like, And I'm sure he's done background research on the mom to know that she has no interest in the kid. So he's like, well, we either turn her into the government, to the state, and say, you all take care of this, or we keep doing what we're doing. It's like, so yeah, so fun times. But yeah, this episode's starting out explaining the expenditures that just in 1 month, how did we start this thing? Let's go back to the beginning here. So in 1 month, they start out, or not even a month, like less than a month, like they start out March 10th. So this is March. March 10th, they had 643,000 yen. And then by the 30th, they've already spent almost 100,000 yen, which going that, I like doing the yen to dollar configuration because that helps me. Okay, so they've spent like so they've spent about $800 in half a month. That's not as bad as it looked on my end. I was like, okay, $800. That's still a big chunk of money, especially if they have no money, no extra money they're coming in with. So they start out with like 643,000 yen. Let me get on here. 1, 2, 3. So they start out with like $5,000 in the bank, and then they start out with that and they were down like to $3,000. Okay, so yeah, basically, you know, even though they're spending like $800 in this like 20-day time period, not the end of the world, but if they have no money to replenish it, it's like, we're going to run out like real quick. We're going to be out of money in like 2.5 months. We can't keep doing this. We need to get a job. We need to get money in the bank, especially if we're taking care of a kid. Because yeah, I do like that Kazuki, he has like all of these things lined out. He has like food, necessities, education, special expenditures. So he's got it all lined out, like the utilities, everything. Like Kazuki is a planner and is super organized, which again, I feel like it's a shame because Kazuki seems like he was denied this role as a parent for whatever reason, but he's got everything. He's a very big planner and he has everything lined out. Ray just kind of flies by the seat of his pants. Ray kind of feels like the rich kid that's like, I've always kind of had money, so I've not had to worry about it. But Kazuki has established he has not always been rich, so he's had to micromanage and plan out his finances to be able to survive month to month. Ray is just like, oh, it'll be fine. We've got this. So you've got these two individuals who have totally different styles. And Kazuki's like, we are going broke. And Ray, of course, has no clue what that means. He's just like, whatever. He's like, it's fine. Why are we going broke? And Kazuki's like, because we're not working. He's like, that's why. I love that Ray also is playing video games with Miri. It's really cute. It's adorable. He's like, we're going to come back on our spending. And I love Ray. Ray fires back like instantly. Like they are like a married couple, right? Because Kazuki's like, we're going to have to cut back on our spending. And Ray is like, why not buy cheaper beer? And he's like, I already am. Which Ray's getting at, he's like, why don't you not buy beer? Because then you wouldn't have this expenditure at all. And Kazuki's like, because I need to drink because of you all. But yeah, so I like the subtle product placement that they just jump on us. That they're just like, it's just like, here's this Sunset Domugi. It's like, there you go. And then he says, you won't be able to buy new games at this rate. And I love Ray's instantly like, excuse me? Like, that gets his attention. And then he's like, and we're not going to be able to buy pudding anymore. And then Miri's like, excuse me? He says, no pudding for dessert. I love her pajamas have that black cat on it that's in the ED. I've just noticed that. It's really cute. But yeah, he's like, that's how bleak this is, people. I like the Kazuki's like, did that get your attention? No pudding, no games? He's like, we need money. Hilarious. He's like, we'll be ruined at this rate. I love that. I love Ray's like, huh? The voice actor for Ray was really good in this episode. He was just like, what are we doing? What is happening? It was absolutely hilarious. He's like, desperate times call for desperate measures. We've got to pull out the last resort. We've got to beg Kyu-chan for jobs. And Q's thing is like, okay, I love how you instantly know that Q realizes what's going on, because he's like, oh, okay, you're ready to get back in the game. Cool. Here's some small jobs before you do anything big to see where you're at, because he wants to gauge, like, are you guys really ready to get back in the game? They were not, right? But he's like, I need it done within a week. No excuses. So he's like, oh, we can do all that. So we got to make up for all that time off, right? Ha, ha, ha. I like that every time Kazuki gets a coffee and Ray gets like this sugary drink. Again, Ray puts off a very like stoic persona, but in the inside, he's like a kid. He has the sugary drink. He's reading some kind of manga, but it looks like, is it backgammon? What is it? It's not rugby, is it? Oh gosh, what am I thinking of? He's reading some kind of manga with these two guys, and they have like, it's not lacrosse, I don't think. Let me look on here. I really like it, but it has like the two individuals that are, oh, it is lacrosse. Yeah, it is lacrosse. Yay! So he's reading a lacrosse manga, and they both have like the two protagonists. One has dark hair, one has blonde hair, and they have the red and blue, only it's reversed. So it's kind of like him and Kazuki. I was like, okay, so Ray's reading the sports anime manga, which is hilarious. And Ray's like, what are we doing? And he's like, you've got a week. And he's like, oh, we got this, Q. Let's go, Ray. Come on. And they leave their drinks as always. And Q's like, I don't know how to feel about this. Do I trust you boys? Now, I like that Ray, when they sit back down at the table, Kazuki's like, we're going to divide this stuff up. And Ray's like, isn't this normally your job? Like, Kazuki is the planner. He goes to the background checks, goes through all the details. And then Ray is the one that pulls off the actual assassinations, things like that. Like, that's their give and take, right? But Kazuki's like, we don't have time for me to do everything. He's like, beggars can't be choosers. You're just gonna have to get it done. And then the Alzora daycare, the ringtone for that was like da 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 da, like that. Just the doom and gloom ringtone was absolutely hilarious. It almost sounded like the Imperial Stormtrooper March from Star Wars, which is hilarious. I have actually a coworker. He works in like maintenance. And it's so funny because one day he was helping me set up something and his phone was going off and it was like the Darth Vader ringtone and it was his boss. I was like, ah! So that's what it reminded me of. I was like, this is great. But yeah, what terrible timing. I feel like if they had managed to keep her in the daycare, could they have pulled the mission off? I don't know. I think it could have gone badly because he would have had to go get her at some point, which would have been probably in the middle of their mission. So it's probably a good thing in hindsight that this happened when it did, that Kyu-chan could address the situation. And I love that Kazuki looks at Ray being like, I wonder what they want. And Ray's like, oh, who knows? Like, they just look at the phone without answering it. Like, what do we do? And then he's like, oh, Moshi Moshi, what is it? And Hanyu answers the phone. And they're like, the truth is, we're going to stay home the next few days. And he's like, why? Why? What do you mean by that? And so then we have the notice. We appreciate your understanding regarding daycare operations, the transmission of a virus within the facility in order to prevent further spread, temporary closure. Thanks for understanding. So yeah, it's, again, the realism of this show with taking care of a kid. I try to get less and less into Spy Family, right? But here's the deal. What I appreciate about this show over Spy Family is that it is very realistic about the cost of taking care of a kid, the time and effort it takes to take care of a kid, and all of the little intricacies and kind of hurdles along the way. Because there's been a lot of people say that Spy Family is like an effort to get people to get married and have kids, like showing like, look at this family, isn't it great? And that may not be the case. And Spy Family presents this really like wholesome family picture. Everything's all sunshine and rainbows. I like this show because it shows the much more realistic side of parenting, being like, oh no, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. There's all this stuff. It costs money. It takes all your time. They're exhausted taking care of her, and they're not really even doing anything except taking care of her. Like, it's hard to get all their other stuff done on top of it because they're focusing all their time and energy on that. And then the idea of actual closures of daycares, the process of getting into a daycare. Like, I don't have kids myself, but I have friends that do, that tell me about all these things at length. And I'm like, I'm like, you're really not making me want a kid. But I'm like, okay. But yeah, they talk about all this stuff too. And I have family members that have small children. And so it's like, you see this. And yeah, it's a lot of work. But it's worth it because they do it because they love Miri. And so for them, it's worth it because they love her and want to take care of her. So I like that this show does a very realistic portrayal of parenthood that is not just sunshine. It's not just, oh, kid's great. It's like, no, yeah, they are. But there's also X, Y, and Z attached with it. It's not just something simple, right? God, I love it. It's so great. And I love that Kazuki, of course, is emoting this. Oh my God. And then Ray just is in the background going, like Ray is just internally screaming. Like he just looks like a glum cat. Crunch Time being the name of the episode. And so, of course, Miri's with her papa. And then Ray's like, what are we doing about the jobs? He's like, why are you asking me? One of us has to stay home and watch Miri, right? He's like, this is so bad. And then she's like, I want to go to the park. And so she makes the detail that she has to do while she's on break, ask her parents about their job, and then write a report about it. And tell the class about it. And I love that Kazuki and Ray are like, well, why? They're like, our jobs. And then I like that Kazuki's like, tell our jobs. And Ray's like, tell everyone. Like just the two of them are working. I love that Kazuki and Ray are working more and more in sync as the episodes go on. They're getting more in sync with one another. They're finishing each other's sandwiches. It's great. And they're like, don't you work at a store or something? And they're like, no. And I love that Miri grabs a hold of Ray's leg and he drags her away. It's the cutest thing. It's hilarious. These two bakas. What are we gonna do? I freaking love Kazuki and Ray's, like, their banter because they're two bakas trying to take care of this little girl. It's freaking hilarious. And then she's sitting there, like, in bed. She gets to sleep, right? And this is the other side of parenting, right? The moment I saw this scene, I was like, no, that is all my friends describing their lives. The kid is sound asleep, like an angel. There's toys everywhere. There's dishes in the sink. It's a complete and utter disaster, but it's so time consuming, right? And the idea that just they haven't been able to clean anything. And then Yellow Wolf is the name of the energy drink. And this is my third all-nighter. And Kazuki looks like he's about to die. And I love Ray's like, I'm back. With the photos. Pictures taken. And he just lays it there, and they both collapse at the table. He's like, there's no way to work during the day when we're taking care of a kid. And he's like, I'm so tired. And he's like, no sleeping. I like that he calls Ray out. He's like, you do all-nighters with your video games, so shut up. He's like, we need to ask Kyu-chan for advice. And Ray is sleeping in the tub again. He's like, come on. He's like, you gotta watch Miri in the house. This whole sequence where Ray fell asleep and Miri ran after him, I just like making my like skin crawl, because I'm like Kazuki. I'm like, what if somebody had picked her up? Which Rio runs into her. I'm like, what if somebody picked her up? What if she got lost? What if the police found her and we're like, where's your parents? Like, what? All these scenarios. And they handle this scene very realistically, because she's 4. She's kind of smart. She figures out, and she follows him like a spy, right? And I like that everybody walking down the street kind of sees her following Kazuki, and they're like, oh, she's playing with him. Even the shopkeeper owner's like, ha ha ha, I'm in on the joke, right? That she follows him. But the crazy thing is, and she gets distracted by the beautiful woman that like walks by, probably thinks of her mom, right? She probably thinks of her mom being like that, and like walks very elegantly like her too, which is cute. But the thing of it is, Kazuki is about to go into the bar, and she chases after him, but she gets distracted by the Saint Bernard. Like a 4-year-old would. She gets distracted by the dog and doesn't see him go into the coffee shop. Now we, the audience, are like, well, why wouldn't you go in the coffee shop? Why wouldn't that be your first guess? But the thing of it is, he's been passing by all these restaurants and stores. She has no clue why he would go in the coffee shop. That doesn't make sense to her. Why that restaurant out of all of them doesn't make sense. So she just follows along with him, and it's like, ah. And then she misses the restaurant, and the moment she just walks past, it's like, oh my God. And just keeps on going. And then Ray wakes up and realizes, oh shit, she's gone. And Kyu has this air about him like, did you really think you could fool me? You two idiots? Really? Mm-hmm. Because as Kazuki's sitting there, he's like, anything you care to tell me about? That you'd like to inform me about? And Ray's like, oh, no, everything's fine. We just need some advice. And then his phone goes off, and it's Ray. And he's like, Kyu-chan's already pissed at me. I love that Kyu is just sitting there like, I can hear you. You guys are morons, but I'm tolerating you. Help. And then, yeah, he knows everything, right? But I love that she's like in the middle of the city being like, what do I do? And Ray's just like, I don't know what's going on. So they go to look for her together. And then I like Ray's looking in the river. That's actually hilarious. So Rio comes out of Kyu's bar, and she runs into him, right? And he's pretty scary. Like, he grabs her by the tuft of her coat. Like, grabs her by her coat and lifts her up. He's a pretty scary dude, but he's not, like, menacing. I think that's kind of the big thing, is that he looks terrifying. Granted, he looks terrifying. He looks like a stone cold killer. He looks terrifying, but he doesn't look evil. I guess that's the best way to put it. But he kind of is, because I'm thinking back to the episode where he like murdered those people. He kind of is, but I don't know. He just lets Miri down afterwards, and that's when Kyu runs into her. So he's like, I don't know. I'm interested in Rio's character. I'm very intrigued by him, but I don't know what to make of it yet, because there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, he seems like just like a dead inside robot, but he's been killing all this time. You kind of have to be in that case. So he kind of seems like Ray a little bit. So I'm like, I feel like at this point in the series, like next episode is almost to the halfway point. I feel like that Ray's dad is going to be the villain. Like, Ray's father and the organization are going to be the villains in all this, because they're probably going to get involved with Miri at some point. I feel like that's going to be a thing. Maybe this guy will end up helping them. I don't know if Rio will end up helping them. He seems like a misleading antagonist, right? Like, I feel like Ray's dad and that organization are going to be the true antagonists. I feel like this guy is kind of a misdirect. Like, he's meant to be the antagonist, but then he's going to end up helping Rei and Kazuki at the end of things. Like, he's going to end up assisting them because he's going to, like everyone else, fall for Miri's charms. I don't know. I just feel like that's the case. But I'm not sure if that will be it or not. But he looks very intimidating. I'm going to get a picture of that. He looks very intimidating, but I feel like we, the audience, are supposed to think he's going to be this big bad. And, I mean, they're all killers, so there's that. But I feel like at the end, he does put her down and lets her go. And then leaves. This giant of a man. And then that's when Kyu-taro comes out and sees her. He's so handsome. I like Kyu-taro. He's a very handsome character with his glasses. And then he's like, here's this kid. And then, of course, by sheer luck, Rei's like, I'm thirsty. Let me get a drink. And Kazuki's like, okay, fine. But Kazuki is like the parent freaking out. Like, Rei seems rather like simplistic and like pragmatic and being like, okay, well, we'll find her. It'll be fine. But Kazuki is the one that overreacts. Kazuki's the emotional one. He's like, we've got to call the cops. And I like that Rei's like, us? He's like, we're hitmen. You want us to call the cops? Like, I like Rei's just looking at him like, are you serious? And then he's like, what choice do we have? I love he gets right up in Rei's face. And he's just like, look, he's like, someone might have kidnapped her to get back at us. He's like, or she's so cute, some creep might have ran off with her. Like, Kazuki is freaking out. He's like thinking of the worst case scenarios. And he's like, I'll find whoever took her and tear him apart. Like, he's just like, I feel like Kazuki is emoting like all the things he'd do. He's like, suspension, blindfold, knife, waterboarding, gas burners, pliers, fingernails. He's like, if anybody touches her, I'll kill her. I feel like Rei would actually do those things. I feel like Kazuki's mostly talk here. Like, he would defend Miri and protect her, but I feel like he gets so overboard and emotional. I think Rei would legit kill someone to save her. Like, Rei would not even hesitate. He wouldn't even say 2 words. He'd point blank KO someone to get her back. Like, that's the difference in their parenting styles, right? And then he's just like, oh, you found him? He's like, I'm thirsty. And then that's when they show up. And then Rei's like, good grief. And then Kyu's like, Papa. Like, what is this? Kyu apparently is very much a scary individual. And he kind of is. He has this intimidating aura around him. But then he also is, I think Kazuki, he shows that intimidating aura to Kazuki and Rei the most. But he's actually not entirely what he seems. And so they're like, oh, we'll just leave her with you. And I love that they're like, quit calling us Papa, stay with Kyu-chan, ha ha ha. And then he's like, babysitting jobs. He's like, I can't extend the deadline. I need you to do this. And then when he says, if the child were out of the picture, could you finish the job? And I feel like, and both Rei and Kazuki are like, out of the picture, you mean you're gonna kill her? No, that we don't want that. Like, out of the picture, no, they're like, what are you suggesting? And he's like, I'll look after her. And he's like, oh, no, you can't. You would be cold-blooded enough to... Wait, what? I love that they're like, what'd you say? And then he says, I'll look after her so you can focus on your job. And then I love that Kazuki's like, we have no choice. When they're at home, he's like, we have to leave her with Kyu-chan. We have no choice. She literally needs to be gone so we can do this day trip. Like, we have to have her away. And Rei's like, okay. He's like, and what if he finds out about Miri? I love that Rei has the lines under his eyes. Like, Rei is worried too, but he's not like over emotional like Kazuki is. And he's like, we don't have a choice. And I love that he's like, okay, Miri, you can't talk to him at all. And so then he's like, okay, be a good girl, Miri-chan. And he's like, don't say anything about Papa. Which they're so obvious, right? They're so obvious. And then she tells him she tells him her full name. So he could literally look her up in the back room, right? But he calls her Miri-chan. And he's so sweet. He like makes her the strawberry drink and calls her princess. Gives her the straw with the heart. Like, Kyu-chan knows exactly what he's doing, right? He knows exactly what's going on. And she says it tastes like heaven. And he's like, heaven? And she's like, it's so tasty. Thank you, mister. And he says, oh, well, you're very welcome. You can call me Kyu-chan. And so meanwhile, I like that Kazuki's like, he's more cold-blooded than he looks. I like that we cut from him being the sweetest person to Miri to Kazuki being like, he's terrible. He's the worst. And Ray being like, really? You don't say. He's like, he's quite the lady killer. So Q's like, he's quite the lady killer as well. So Kyu-chan is a well-known lady killer. Okay. And then Kazuki's brain goes to the worst possible place imaginable. He's like, no. Where he's like, I'm going to marry Kyotaru. It's like, no. Which, granted, if she was a teenager, that would be a legit concern. But no, Ray Kazuki has the worst mindset. It's like, no. He's like, no. Ray's like, what are you doing? And then he's just like weeping, being like, we've got to get back ASAP. And so she says, are you Kazu-kun and Ray-kun's friend? Because she doesn't call them Papa. And he's like, I am. And so this part here, where he makes up what their jobs are, he's not lying to her. He's just kind of funny. He's like, oh, he trolls them so hard. He's like, oh, well, it's understandable why they'd want to hide it. He's so smooth. He's like, they have very special jobs. And he says that Kazuki is a stand-up comedian, that he makes people laugh, and that he always bombs, though. And the bombs are kind of, you know, they really are bombing people and killing people, right? He's killing people with his jokes. So it's funny because it's suggesting like it's going with Kazuki's personality, but saying also that like he's too embarrassed to tell others about it. So I wonder if there's some subtext there of saying he obviously doesn't want people to know that he's an assassin, but I wonder if the joke that Q's saying is that Kazuki is really not suited to be an assassin. It's kind of a joke that he's a hitman, right? That's not really what he's suited for, but he's doing it anyway, and people are and he's like getting people to laugh along with him and like, aren't I ridiculous at this job? But he still goes along, and saying he frequently bombs, but he's too embarrassed to tell others about it. Yeah. Saying, like, I feel like that's Q's subtext of saying Kazuki is really not suited to be a hitman, but that's the joke, and he keeps on going with it like a comedian. And isn't it funny that he's a hitman? Like, I feel like that's what he's trying to get at subtly. And so it's like he's saying that about his personality in a way that Miri could understand. And when he says he's out there on some stage bombing his heart out, it's like a subtle reference to him like actually killing people right now. He's like, oh, he's killing them with his jokes. Ha ha ha. And so then Miri's like, okay, what about Ray-kun? And he's like, oh, well, he's a Middle Eastern oil baron. I'm like, a Middle Eastern oil baron. I like that may not be totally false. His family could have connections to oil, and that's why they're so rich, right? I hadn't thought of Ray's nationality, if that was a thing. But I like that Miri's like, wait, what? And then the whole time they're like, Ray, the whole time he's like getting his stuff ready to take this guy out. Kazuki is going undercover and he's just freaking out. Ray's like, you need to like, shut up. We're both doomed. And then we cut back to Miri and she's drawing the picture of them saying Ray-kun and Kazuki, it's my daycare tomorrow. I'm drawing their jobs. And he says she's a talented artist. And then Q asks if she wants to go home. And she says no. And she says, Kazu-kun and Ray-kun will be with me forever. She's like, yeah, Kazu-kun's food is super delicious and Ray-kun has video games. She wants to stay with them. And I love the drawing. She's like, it's toasty warm when we all sleep together. Like, it's happened more than once. I'm just saying. Also, drawing Ray as the oil baron's son and drawing Kazuki as the comedian, you're not subtle because you're drawing Ray in the tuxedo that looks like a wedding tux and the Middle Eastern garb that Ray is wearing. Is it a reference to like a wedding dress? Is that what we're getting at? I'm not making assumptions, but I am making assumptions. I'm like, is this your subtle way of getting that across? But then he's like, do you like those two? And Miri's like, yes, I love them so much. And he's like, okay. All right, I see. Yeah. So then the two of them show back up, and he's like, oh, she's asleep. And they're like still like Kazuki is still in his spy espionage garb. And he's like, oh, did she say anything weird? And he's like, and Ray picking her up in the most gentle manner possible. Ray is just like he, again, Kazuki emotes and he says everything he's thinking. And so if he cares about something, he's very expressive about it. Ray shows and doesn't tell. Ray very much like the way he cradles her and picks her up so gently. Like that says more than anything he could have said, right? He's like, let's head home. I love it. I love it so much. And then Kazuki's like, no, she said Papa Ray. And of course Ray, like cuddling her in his arms. Ah! Oh my God. I love it. Like he's so and Kyu's like, you two are hopeless. He's like, uh-huh. He's like, oh yeah. Like, listen to that kid. She says the silliest things in her sleep. And then she says, Papa Kazuki bombed. And Ray's like, what? And then Kyu, he's like, oh, we're going to take her back to her families. And he's like, enough. He's like, I know everything. And then I like that Kazuki's like, oh, you do? And Ray's like, Ray looks more apprehensive. Ray looks more protective. Like, okay, you know everything. Don't take her away from us. Right? Ugh. And so then we go back to the daycare. And the parent presentation. And so she says, thank you, Papa Kazuki, for always making delicious food. And Papa Ray, let's play games again sometime. I love that, Ray! I love that. Okay, you have the families. You have the one woman and her husband's a cop. Then you have two that look like they're playing baseball. Right? And I love that Ray looks like he'd rather not be there and Kazuki's like enjoying himself. And so we have comedian and oil baron. I love my comedian Papa Kazuki and my oil baron Papa Ray very much. And the moms are just on their phones like, okay, let's talk about this. Okay, we have like one family in the background. You have like a zoo, like one guy is a baker or a doctor. One like drives an ambulance. One is like doing karate. One is doing construction. You have all this. And the moms, okay, I want to get this. An oil baron. I love performers. I smell money. I thought they were hosts. Sounds like high income. Really? I thought they worked together. Well, they kind of do. I love that they're just like, oh. And I love that, God, Ray doesn't care, but Kazuki's like, oh my God. He knows that they're gossiping about them. He's like, oh my God, these ladies think that we're partners. Yar. He's like, oh God. I love that expression where he's like, they totally think that we're married. It's like, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. And she says, please take care of your hard work at your jobs. Oh my God. And everybody claps except Ray. Ray's just like, I'm not. And they're like, I bet they're rich. Aww. But then her like grabbing hold of Kazuki's legs. And he's like, thanks for the pictures, Miri. And then he says, well done. Like, they're just the best dads. Oh my God. They're the best, worst dads. And he's like, here's your payment. So yeah. Kazuki is thanking Kyu-chan. Now we want to come back on spending. And Ray is reading his lacrosse manga. And he's like, Kyu-chan, that was a nasty trick. You knew everything and didn't tell us. He says, you should know by now you can't hide things from me. And so then Kyu tells them, he's like, I intended to take action if the child's presence was going to keep you from interfering with your work. And both of them like stop, like Ray stops reading his manga at that. He's like, you're aware this is grim business in which human life is exchanged for money. This world will not accept you taking in a child and playing at family life. He's like, this isn't going to fly. This is very dangerous. He's like, if you do anything to betray the organization, then Ray, you know those awful consequences better than anyone. So yeah, so Ray has seen firsthand what happens if you betray the organization. Which I'm curious about that now. I want to know more of that. I feel like we're going to get more Ray backstory, which I'm excited about. Right? And it's like, not to mention, we're the ones who killed her father. And then it cuts to both of them being like, yep, we did. But after spending some time with her, he's like falling for her charms. He's like, I get why you did it. He's like, I can see why you want to take care of her. He's like, she's a good kid and she might change you both. I like that. He's like, I don't know yet if it'll be in a good way or a bad way. So yeah, but and the good way or bad way, he's like, she could change you both in a good way. Or is it bad? I don't know if he's thinking bad for business. I'm feeling like the bad way could be bad for business, like in a way that they won't be able to do their jobs anymore. But the good way, we all know what that means. So, like, could you become better people through her? And I like Kazuki's like, well, that's not why we. And he says we could all die tomorrow. Others might resent us and seek revenge on us. There's a chance we could put others in our lives in danger. Meaning like Miri could be put in danger by this. He's like, are you prepared to accept that? And we cut from Rei to Kazuki and they both look like, yeah, we want to take care of her. And he's like, then don't regret it. Hashtag no regrets. And then we have the ending. Oh. So yeah, that episode was absolutely wonderful. I love it. It's so good. And getting Kyu-chan to like be in on it now. He knows what's up. I figure Rio is gonna know by the end of it too. I for some reason, I don't know. Maybe the series is making Rio out to be the bad guy, but I don't know. It's curious, right? I'm not sure how they're gonna go about it. But yeah. Oh, I need more coffee. I need more coffee, y'all. But I was really, really excited by the episode of Buddy Daddies. That was a really good episode. And Rei continues to be like, he wants to be a dad so bad and he's so good for Miri. And Kazuki like has wanted to be a dad as well. And now they have Miri. And now that Q knows, there is a chance that he can watch her in addition to the daycare. So maybe this will work. Maybe it'll work. But y'all, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the next episode. We're not even halfway through the season yet. I feel like this maybe was the end of Act 1 because now Q's in on the deal too, and they've established this feels more like the end of Act 1, honestly, the first act of the season, that now Kyu-chan knows, everybody important knows about Miri, even Rio, and Q has put the gauntlet down saying, okay, you want to take care of this kid, fine. You also need to understand that there's going to be a price to pay with this. So are you okay with that? And here we are. And they're putting it down saying they are. So now we got to put it to the test, right? So yeah, I'm pretty excited, y'all. I'm ready for next week to see. We're getting back into the swing of things, it seems, with the whole assassin business. I'm ready to see where it goes. So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I'm excited to hear your comments down below, but I'll be back next week with episode 6 of Buddy Daddies. Bye.